Welcome to CEO with Sophie. Just a quick note from me. If you like what you hear, go ahead and join the CEO Club right now by hitting that subscribe button. Not only will you never miss an episode, but you'll also be helping us out more than you know. Thank you and enjoy. From the Indian Navy to the front lines of global technology, today's guest has done it all. Neema Uthappa is partner and chief information officer at Oliver Wyman, with over 2 decades leading digital transformations at some of the world's most respected organizations. She's an innovator, a mentor for women in tech and single parents, and the author of The Cinderella Elephant, a book about embracing discomfort and writing your own story. In this conversation, Neema shares her journey, the mindset shifts that shaped her career, and powerful advice on leadership, lifelong learning, and turning obstacles into opportunities. You don't want to miss this one. Let's get going. Hi, Neema. Welcome to the podcast. It is so good to have you here.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to have a chat with you and learn all about your background and your story because I think it's a really interesting one. So let's start there. Are you able to give us a little bit of an understanding on who you are and your background?
Sure. I'm Neema Uthappa, and I was born and raised in India in a place called Kurg, which is the southernmost part. And the story goes that Alexander the Great came down and left behind his wounded soldiers, and that some of them married the Brits and Scots that they came, and some locals too. And that's how my community was formed. So we worship the river like the Greeks, and we also wear our men wear kilts like the Scots. So it's a very unique culture. So I grew up there, and then obviously came to US only in 2010. Prior to that, I started my career as one of the first three executive women officers for Indian Navy. 2010, I came here, joined Amex, and since then McKesson and McKinsey, and now Oliver Wyman.
Okay, I want to hear all about obviously being in the Navy. How was that? And how did that really shape who you are today and the leadership style that you have as well?
So, Indian Navy happened when I was in the final year of engineering. So we were kind of like deciding on the thesis that I wanted to take, like the project work, the final project work. I took design of intelligent buildings for oceanography as my thesis topic. And that was like a big no-no, like all our professors said, no, we don't have internal guides for you to be guided. So do not take topics that you can't get guides for. And India at that time, in the late 90s, was not equipped for it. Right. And so I called my dad and I said, hey, they're discouraging me. He said, no, just ask them to kind of sign your papers, like tell them that you will do on your own. So I went and told them that. I wasn't sure what I would be doing, but I did. And then I went on to kind of do my own projects with, went on to met with some scientists at NIO Goa, National Institute of Oceanography, learned about how to, those days it wasn't called data analytics, but it was more learning about sonar and radar data, how they are calculated and how to predict and, all different aspects of oceanography and their effect on the buildings and things like that. I actually ended up doing that for my thesis. And then Indian Navy at that time was looking for, youngsters to join who could help them. And it was one of a kind experiment that they were conducting. They wanted to see if children or kids straight out of college, given the right training, if they could perform at the level of commanders with 20 years experience. So mine was almost like I like to call it, I was a first lab rat for that experimentation. And so they chose three women leaders. They positioned us one in each command in the works branch. That's how my career started. And, we were responsible and at the command level for all things related to work, infrastructure, and things like that.
And how did that work out? Could they say it was like a bit of a lab rat trying to see if it worked? What was the outcome?
So first few months, I won't lie, like a lot of them had problems accepting us because let's get this. We were 20 and 21 when we joined, and we were already in the command, and all the commanders were like mid 40s or 50s, and they were seeing their children in us. And so it was hard for them also to accept that, youngsters at that age could come and be at their level at some, and so the acceptance was an issue. And the second was the job itself. So every time you rejected a file, it would come back with a lot of vengeance because they didn't want to hear a no from, a youngster who's 21 years old. And then one of my admirals called me. He said, "The faster you show that you are in charge, it's better for you." So I said, "How do I do that?" And he said, "Reject all the file that comes on your table for the next 1.5 months with clear cut guidelines." So I did that. What I didn't realize it would rebound. There would be a boomerang effect. So it
Mm.
all came back with long notes. But what it did to me was I had to work much more harder in order to counter those points. So I ended up digging deeper into each of these projects or products or whatever you want to call it, the files. And so it made me better over time. And by 8 months, I was like in my game.
Love that.
The
Yeah.
first 8 months was all learning and understanding and navigating the system, pretty much
Mm.
asking for help. But 8 months later, I was fine. And
Wow.
I didn't really see age as making a difference, really speaking.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's incredible, and that's probably really set you up to where you are now, and you've probably taken some things. Is there anything that you've taken from your experience that you feel that you're utilizing now, like any leadership skills or just skills in general?
Yeah, time management is one. I think Navy fine-tuned a lot of qualities that, we as human beings had before we joined. Time management, collaboration, teamwork. When I hear in the corporate context, a lot of people end up saying, "Oh, that's so military-like." What is military-like? My definition of military-like is more discipline, more, I would say, organization skills, collaboration, and teamwork. In the Navy, like if you look at the way any armed forces functions, is like you need to kind of plan it very well. So the planning skill is extremely important. You can't go to war without a good plan. And yes, you need to course correct along the way based on the situation. So situational awareness is very important. So those are some of the things that comes easy to me when I'm in the current role. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great, and yeah, like we say, a great experience, and you've been able to bring it through to now. And what got you into technology? How did you fall into the technology space?
So I came to US in 2010, and to give you a little bit of background, I was almost at the highest end of what a woman leader could go in the Navy. So I went on to do my executive MBA at IAM, and then I became the CEO of a company, a mid-sized, 15,000 people company, reporting to the CEO. And at that point, my father passed away, and I got to be really spiritual at that point. I really didn't want to work. I started to look at life very differently. I think until that point, I was really ambitious, and then it just took a different turn. And it's almost a U turn at that point. And then I came to US. I joined my husband. I was already married, so he was here in the US. He was establishing a team in Canada. So I joined him there, and I didn't want to work. I didn't want to have a second career, you know. And I was more looking at what can I do for nonprofit, volunteering, and things like that. That's when one of his mentors intervened and like, she's so accomplished, she's young, she can't be just not working for the rest of her life. Bring her and make her talk to me.
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, I have this role in Amex, which, some of the projects are in red, and why don't you bring them to green?" And I
Mm.
was like, "No, I absolutely don't want to work." And he's like, "No, no, I want you to work." And said,
Wow.
"Okay, don't give me the pay. I'll let you know in 14 days' time if I'm the best person." And I saw that I was healing myself
Mm.
whilst working on these projects, which were in red pretty much, right? And I was really thought it was the best. It's a win-win situation for the company as well as myself. So that's how I stayed, and I ended up getting a best consultant award in the 4 months where everything was in
Wow.
great end. So that's how I think that second career started. And then I went on a maternity leave and then got back to Amex.
So you kinda, I suppose, fell into it, and now, look where you are, look what you've achieved. You kinda kept going. Do you ever, this is a little bit of a random question, but do you ever feel like, "Oh, I wish I didn't work," and you wish you took that route?
Not really. I mean, life, I don't think anything is predictable.
Mm,
You can't be set in your ways. That's how I look at it. Even my career in the Navy, we did so many things, I think, in a way that prepped me for
mm,
any career in the future, right? Like I always joke, like there are days when I think that, hey, can I do this career, that career? There are times when I want to be a HRO of a company, not a CIO, because I feel like I can build those efficiencies in that system. Like that's how my mind works at times, and I feel like I can build that synergy and connect the
yeah,
dots and things like that. So I think it's how you simplify in your mind in the end is
yeah,
what matters, like and that for me is kind of a stepping stone at that
yeah.
point.
I can see that. And I think especially coming from, the background you have and having that discipline, I think that's a great starting point for anyone. I mean, I definitely wasn't in the Navy, Army, anything like that, but my background was as a dancer and, you know,
Very
I, I
well.
yeah, I went to dance school and it was, did ballet and the discipline that was there and it was really hard, but then it's given me that mindset of I can do like anything I want to do.
Yeah.
If I could do that and wake up and spend 8 hours a day
Mm.
dancing every
And
single
also
day.
practicing, like you
Yeah.
don't have to be good at everything to begin with. It comes with persistence and
Yeah,
practice, sometimes.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I was really bad at ballet because I never did ballet when I was young, so I picked it up older. I was 16 when I picked up ballet.
Wonderful.
But yeah, spent so much time doing it. But I think, yes, okay, it's not the same as the Navy, but I think having that discipline and coming from a
Absolutely.
similar background is, yeah, sets you up for success. So let me ask you around the mindset stuff then. So obviously you've worked for some incredible companies, American Express, obviously Oliver Wyman now. What are the, I suppose, biggest mindset shifts you've had to make along the way?
I think So I think when I was a bit younger, I was a little more directive in the sense like I would ensure like I had to give step by step and then do it or kind of fix the problem in the shortest possible time. I always say this, and people who know me will acknowledge that I always say I like speed other than driving. Like so speed at work is what I like. So, but what it also did, and because I was wanting to do that in that little, time frame that I had told myself I would do in my mind, I was kind of becoming more instructional and more directive, like, almost to some point giving Excel sheet, format. The way I moved and like I had great mentors along the way who told me like, hey, you don't have to, give everything, let people fail. Well, it's
Mm,
okay, and that was like a mindset shift for me, like allowing people to fail and like quickly kind of do that mid-course correction
yeah.
and be able to meet almost the same timeline.
Mm,
I think the key is to understand when you should look back and kind of, okay, this is enough experimentation. Now let's go back in this. So I think that's helped me a lot. And also compartmentalizing a lot of, you don't have to prioritize everything all at once, right?
mm,
So that was another thing that I used to do because, obviously in the Navy, everything is priority. You're literally preparing yourself for war any given point in time. So it's everything going in parallel.
mhm,
But in the corporate world, out of the 100 things, 90 may be priority and 10 can take a back seat for at least few days or
yeah.
a period in time. So I think that was another big change. Also, kind of being understanding people at the personal level was another. Like, again, in the defense, you don't really talk about personal life and personal problems
Mhm,
on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, you're expected to have that stoic presence or like, the officer-like quality as it's referred, and so to come back and adjust and actually listen to people and
mm,
hear about their problems and understand the background. That is a major shift for me that I've made in the last few years.
yeah. All of those are so relatable, especially letting people fail and you're delegating tasks and seeing what they can do. And sometimes they can do a better job than you. But that's something that I definitely struggle with is giving someone else the reins. And I think sometimes that's why people are leaders is there's an
Uh,
element of control we like to
mm.
have. But when you are trying to grow a team and build other people up, you have to give them the responsibility. But that's so difficult sometimes.
Yeah, but you know, delegation used to come easy to me. So that
Yeah.
the two
Okay.
part to it, delegation used to come really easy to me. And it is, I mean, like I think I'm very good at delegation. Where the quality of work is where
Hmm.
I would insist on a certain level of quality even before we started, right? And then I quickly realized that you can't aim at perfection. Like
Yeah.
no one is perfect, really. I didn't think I was perfect either, but you know, you can't aim at perfection. So the
Yeah.
definition of perfection itself is hazy at times. So that is the reconciliation.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think your secret is to staying like adaptable while keeping your teams focused and motivated?
So for me, I'm a constant learner. I love learning. I know you know, like I pretty much do end up doing a course in the latest technology that's launched pretty much every year. So I go back from work and there are times when I've studied for like 2 hours every day. And that's again, you know, going back to that discipline factor. Like how can I use that to kind of keep in touch with the latest technology, for
Yeah.
example? I need to be adaptable first and understand to guide my team.
Hmm.
And as much as I'm really not hands on, I'm not coding on day to day basis at this point in time, but I need to understand the problems they come up with, right?
Hmm.
For in order to guide them better. So I keep in touch and also being that authentic leader, like keeping it transparent, open, and authentic, and kind of really speaking about it. I always ask the teams that I've led to be open, honest, and candid. You know, that way, a lot of problems can be resolved if you're
Yeah.
open, honest, and candid, right? And so those are some of the things that I always make sure that they are in place.
Yeah. There's definitely a trend here. Obviously, I've spoken to so many amazing people, but everyone talks about being like a lifelong learner, always be learning something new. So yeah, that's definitely a trend that I'm seeing in the execs out there, and that's what a lot of them are doing to stay
Yeah, and it
ahead of it.
needn't be always technology. You know, like I tend to learn other things outside of technology, and I can, you know, like sometimes you can apply those learnings to technology related problems. It needn't be one on one comparison, but you know, I take one hobby every year and go all out to learn it. And it could be a making or, you know, training myself in something or winemaking or book writing. So there's so many hobbies, one per year. And then when you learn them, you understand the nuances behind each
Yeah.
of those trades, you know, or
Yeah.
then you can apply some of those learnings to your day to day. So I think constant learning should be there.
Yeah, I'm all for that, learning new hobbies.
Yeah.
My problem is I'm very competitive. So if
Okay.
I learn a new hobby, so, I picked up tennis last
Hmm.
year, I want to be the best. Like I will get so competitive. So it's a little bit dangerous for me, but I do completely agree. Learning new hobbies,
Yeah.
it teaches you a lot about yourself as well as, you know, the
Yeah.
hobby itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Digital transformation, right? You've done so many digital transformations over your time. What is the biggest misconception leaders have about digital transformation?
That it needs to be industry specific.
Mm,
And if you look at my resume, I moved companies. Like, you know, I find it hard to reconcile when people tell me, let's say, even when you're applying for jobs, they say, "Oh, you've worked in the banking and financial industry. This is a healthcare industry. You need someone with healthcare experience, for example." At least for technology, really, that is not the case. As long as you're a good learner, a fast learner, understanding any industry is much easier than you think, right? Like, wouldn't take me more than 2 to 3 months to understand any industry, really speaking. And then translate that to technology. The way I look at technology is actually technology is dumb. It is what you make of it. You have the same tools, same companies, same vendor partners everywhere. How do you translate them into the solution that you're looking for the problems that you have in that particular company? That is what digital transformation is. If you look at what the problems you have or the use cases that you have within your company, be it revenue generation, cost avoidance, or regulatory compliance or productivity increase, whatever that looks like, be it brownfield, greenfield, or bluefield, it doesn't matter, right? As long as you know what you want and if you're clear about it, translating technology to make that work is much easier. Where companies go wrong is in defining what they want. And then
Mm,
most of the time it's like digital transformation gone wrong because the solution to the problem is not well defined.
yeah.
So that's how I see it. So it's not very different. I don't
Yeah.
see it different at all.
I agree. I think especially around the industry part. I mean, obviously, I see it from my side. And the amount of companies are like, "Oh, you have to have this background. We only want to see people from this background." But something that I've seen is if you're, let's take insurance for example, especially if you look at the syndicates, they're quite old school in the way that they work. But if you bring someone in, if you want to modernize what you're doing, bring someone in that's got the experience of
Yes.
working with the latest technologies or being in the cloud, because then they'll be able to push you forward. So I completely agree around the industry piece. Someone can pick it up, but also they're going to bring some good stuff to the table. They're going to bring experience. So,
Yeah. And also like viewing the problem from a fresh pair of eyes, right? Like when you're stuck in the same industry, let's say I'm working for in the healthcare for let's say 20 years and I don't know anything that's happening around me.
yeah.
Um, I've been able to translate my knowledge from banking and financial, for example,
Yeah.
American Express to McKesson Corporation, right?
Yeah.
Very successfully because I knew how that worked for, let's say, a personalized card service in American Express
Hmm.
can easily translate to a personalized patient care in McKesson. Like that's how I look at it. It's easily transferable as long as you know how to translate it, right? So that is where I think I would discourage people saying, "Hey, you need industry experience," and like moving around also helps to understand it.
Yeah, I agree. Recently, I left my previous firm and then I moved to a different company. I'm now back at the previous firm, but just in a wider role and in the wider organization. That was the best thing that I ever did. I think that it taught me so much, and I do think. I mean, don't get me wrong, don't move all the time, but I do think you learn new perspectives and how other people are doing things, which can hopefully excel your career, and give you a better understanding as well.
Yeah, it's a fresh perspective, and
Yeah,
you also come refreshed. That's another thing I like when I go to a new work, is that energy that you get,
yeah,
right? Like I'm
yeah.
not saying like people who are in the same company. I mean, I've been at Amex and changed different roles, and I've had a different energy, and every time I've gone to a different role, right? And you come with that full energy, even though you're coming back to the same
Yeah,
organization or the same team, right?
yeah,
So it's important that you go and experiment, see what how much you can stretch yourself. That is also true, right? Sometimes, like you won't know how much you can stretch if you don't go elsewhere or go to another team or a company or
yeah,
things like that.
yeah. Push yourself, and you'll probably be outside of your comfort
Mhm.
zone for a little bit, but that's where the growth happens, as everyone says.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Another question I want to ask you about, because I'm aware you're a strong advocate for women in tech, and then that's obviously why I got you here today, especially for single mothers. So,
Yes.
what changes would you like to see in the industry to make it more inclusive and supportive?
So I've recruited a lot of single mothers in my past role, and even now a couple of them. But no, and there's a funny part to the story. Like when I was at McKesson, I think at one point I had 5 or 6 single mothers on my team. And by the time I left the team, they all got married. So there was a informal joke, which was more like, "Oh, join Neema's team, you'll get married."
Love it.
Yeah, so that was there. But I think their problems are very, very unique in the sense each of them living condition is different. So you need to understand them a little more. But one thing that I've seen as a common factor for all these single mothers is they're extremely hardworking, extremely hardworking. The amount of output you get from them is very contradictory to the industry belief that, oh, they are with so much problems, they don't work, or women come with so much problem. I think because they are single and because they have to do so much at home, they come to work with a different mindset and they really give their best in the shortest possible time because they want to make it work for
Mm,
themselves, their family, for the organization, everything. So I've seen them being very hardworking. So actually facilitating and also mentoring them at the
Yeah.
individual level. Like most of the women leaders I mentor are, have started as single women
Yeah.
or single mothers, and actually getting to know them through their family lens and everything
Yeah.
and navigating their lives, either through advice, mentorship, whatever that is called, it has been very valuable. And I've recently joined a nonprofit board for one family in Boston, which basically is economic empowerment, where you bring homeless people and take homeless people and educate them and bring them to workforce. So that's the main, cause that they've taken up, and I'm really looking forward to meeting some young women there too. Where I can help and make that difference, even if it's at a very small minuscule level. That is how I see it.
Yeah. And is there anything or any advice that you could give someone just to around, I suppose, navigating trying to have a career and especially progress your career while being like a single parent?
Yeah, I think if you're younger, I would say take those risks that is needed. Like go around, move around, and they say Rolling Stone gathers less dust, right?
Yeah.
So move around. It's in your younger days you can move much more and see
Mm.
what is around and also understand. Because when you go to a higher level, it's important for you to know what these different parts of the companies
Yeah.
it looks like, right? Like be it business side or technology or finance or treasury, whatever that is.
Yeah.
You need to understand. Only when you work a little bit and understand, you know the problems, you know the solutions, you know how exactly those systems work and where you can make a change. So I would say move around and then like identify two or three different paths that you want to be part of, like be it data analytics or be it something else, whatever you want to be part of, and then pursue that and then train yourself, upskill yourself, and don't give up. Simple as that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, don't give up. Love that piece of advice. So I want to ask you a question. I wasn't aware, and then obviously I've done my research on yourself, but you've written a book, haven't you? Tell me about this book. Yeah, give us an idea on what it's about and what you're hoping readers get from it.
So I think the Cinderella Elephant, the name of the book, started because of my own discomfort to something. Like when my daughter was really young, like I think 2, 3 years old, she would always ask us, expect a bedtime story from both my husband and I, and she would give us a theme. She would be like something very random, a lotus and a cell phone. You had to make up a story based on a lotus and cell phone. So and most of the time my husband was doing the job, and so because he's great at storytelling, and
Hmm.
the times he would be traveling, I would be the one. And one such time she said, "Hey, mom, I want a story about an elephant who's Cinderella." I'm like, "Elephant can't be Cinderella's, give me another theme." She's like, "No, I want that," and I said, "No, I can't because elephant can't be Cinderella's."
Yeah.
And in my and so I went back to work next day and I'm thinking, and obviously she gave me another theme. We continued that night. But when I went back next day, I was thinking, why was I so uncomfortable
Mm.
with that theme? And then is it because the elephant has four legs, or like is it because of the weight? And what is it that made me uncomfortable? Is it because the elephant didn't have like a human like feet to wear the glass slippers? And so I kind of translated that thought process to actual life. And I feel like a lot of times we don't give a chance to ourselves and others because we are uncomfortable with the idea itself, and be it people, be it personalities, like you don't want to meet someone because someone says something about someone you don't want to meet. And you already have a preconceived notion about that person. So this book is almost like the main story is about how we should, overcome that is one, but it's a set of short stories, basically using some of the life experiences and
Mm.
kind of translating to how you can derive inspiration from your own life experience to make your workplace scenarios better for yourself, right? Like I would aim at young managers, and all of us have life experiences, and not all of us have great mentors, especially when you're starting young. It's very hard to find those mentors. So this book is aimed at translating your own life experiences into a learning that would guide you through your work life event. So that's how it is placed.
There's a great story behind the story. And I think that's always the case whenever someone writes a book or does anything really, there's always a story behind it. So in that moment of discomfort, you were like, no, I'm going to make a book. And I'm curious, how did that go down with the family when you were like, actually, I'm going to write a book about this? Were they like, oh, you can do it?
So I don't think they thought too much about writing the book. They knew it was like somewhat I was writing something,
Yeah.
but I think when it came to the cover page design is when, I was asking the family and, like even my daughter helped in the drawing. She's the one who came up with the red shoes. She said, if you're so uncomfortable, then why are you using the same glass slipper as Cinderella? Why can't this elephant use the red sandals? And then I was like, I had to literally come out of my discomfort to make a pair of red heels for Cinderella. And so it's a lot of my own growing up. Well, writing that book. That's how I
Yeah.
look at it. Yeah. Yeah. How can you overcome all those, mind blocks in your
Yeah.
own that you create for yourself?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's mostly created by you.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Now, we have a closing tradition on this podcast, and I feel that you've said so much. So I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure you might repeat yourself, or if not, you might have something pretty amazing to say. But the closing question is, what is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
I would reach out to more people. I was more of an introvert, and so I didn't think reaching out to people it was kind of out of my comfort zone. And maybe if I went back to 20s and 30s, I had the opportunity to reach out, but I didn't put in the effort. Maybe I
Mm,
would give that, like for youngsters, reach out, learn about others' experience,
yeah.
life, talk to them, even something like this, Sophie, what you're doing. So valuable for
Mhm.
youngsters, for
Yeah.
yourself, and for all the youngsters. So I think that's a good step. I would really reach out to people and learn about them.
Yeah, I agree. And it's done obviously myself wonders, and part of the reason I wanted to do this was to learn about people's stories and learn from people. I found it very difficult. We spoke about mentoring earlier, but I found it very difficult to find mentors and coaches. So this is basically my avenue. I'm just asking you guys questions based on what I want to learn, basically.
No, absolutely. And I think it will help you and other youngsters too. But I think even regularly, if you reach out to some people in your circles and outside, I think that will help.
100%. And everyone talks about networking. Networking, I think, is really important. The amount of times I've been in a situation where someone can open the door for me and it's
Yes.
literally just saying
Yeah.
hi, and that's all you need to
Mhm.
do.
Absolutely.
Um, so definitely get out there, meet people, network, and learn about their lives. And then also, create opportunities between yourself.
Absolutely. And people are more generous than you think. I was hesitant for that reason. I was like, okay, what if they shoo me away? Like trying to ask them about their life. Like I'm here like
Yeah.
20 years old and this what would that look like? And I think people are more kind and generous than you think. The youngster, you don't realize that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think as you get older, you do wanna share more, and you do wanna help other
Right.
people more, so, yeah, don't be scared because I mean, I work obviously technically recruitment's a sales job, I get no's every day, uh, so, yeah, as you can tell, I'm not that scared.
You're not at all.
Well, perfect, I appreciate it so much, thank you for spending time with me today, and, yeah, I loved hearing about your background and your story, and I'm hoping it's gonna inspire so many people.
Thank you for having me. You take care.